Hey everyone, this is Paul, and you are listening to episode 13 of the Generation Latino podcast. Guys, do you have a hard time forgiving people? And do you also have a hard time forgiving yourself? In today's episode, we're going to talk about forgiveness and what it means to you and what it means to the people around you. So here you have it, episode 13 Forgiveness. Is it worth it? All right, guys. So on today's episode, I'm really going to talk about forgiveness and what it means and is it worth it, right? Like, oftentimes we get hurt. Someone hurts us, they betray us, they do something that we're not happy with. And it can be from childhood, it can be from adulthood, it can be a parent, it could be a relationship, it could be anyone in your life. And forgiveness is something that I've always have struggled with, if I'm being quite honest, because for me, forgiveness is about letting go. And I know sometimes we may have a hard time letting something go and holding on to it. So when I think of forgiveness, I think of almost letting it go and acting like it didn't happen. So as I've gotten older, and I'll give some examples of forgiveness. And again, there's different variations of forgiveness. Sometimes I have a hard time with forgiving myself. Uh, Maybe decisions that I made or not understanding why I did something at the time that I did. So, you know, growing up, I again, I've spoken about this many times, but we didn't really talk about our feelings. So, because of that, I think when you forgive someone, you have to be very self aware of feelings and why did somebody do something they did, right? And I've learned this through therapy, through self help books, and all of that. So, growing up, I, had a hard time forgiving things that may have had happened to me as a child. And I didn't want to forgive people. I didn't want to forgive my father. I didn't want to forgive maybe the way somebody treated me in a relationship or even the way that I handled something. So when I was younger, I, grew up, as you all know, in a Latino, household. And I, my father wasn't really much in my life, to be honest. And as I grew up as an adult male, as an adult man, I had a lot of resentment towards him. And I had a lot of resentment towards even my mom, if I'm being honest, because you have these two grown adults who, because of their decision making, now I'm stuck with an absentee father or a father that doesn't give a shit about his kids. And that hurt me. As a young boy, that hurt me. And I had a lot of anger towards them. And I had to realize as I got older that, is it shitty, the situation I went through? Yeah, it is, because I wish I had a present father in my life. I wish that I had somebody, a father figure in my life who, created me to be that for me, to be that dad that picked me up at school, that took me out on the weekends, all of that. So as I got older, and I was starting to just get more angry with that because I realized that it had affected me in so many ways. And it wasn't until I went to therapy and, did a lot of self-help, self-development, that I realized that my father being absent in my life was such a profound moment. It affected me. It affected my decision making. It affected a lot of things. So I had to tell myself that I needed to forgive him. I did not want to forgive him, but it wasn't about doing it for him. It was about doing it for myself, for acknowledging the fact that I couldn't change that. And forgiveness really comes down to, in my opinion, accepting the fact that the decision that was made cannot be changed. It can't. He decided that he wanted to be an absent father. That was his decision. And I think for me, forgiving him was almost acknowledging the fact that the decision of him wanting to be an absent father was concrete. And that's what I realized as I got older what forgiveness was. It was acknowledging the fact that you can't change the decision that was made. And even as I got older, as I got married and got into relationships, if somebody did me wrong, I really held on to it. And I just was like, no, fuck you. You betrayed me. You did something wrong to me. Fuck you. I'm done. And I'm still working on that type of behavior where it's like all or nothing. When I went through my divorce, I took it. There were so many things that I had to forgive, right? I had to forgive myself for maybe things that I wish I had done in the process of getting divorced. Forgiving my ex-husband for acting the way that he did at times. There was a lot of things that I needed to focus on when it came to forgiveness. The first one was being that I had to forgive myself for being so hard on myself, right? So when my marriage ended, I was angry at my ex-husband because I felt like he should have tried harder. I felt like he should have, done something elaborate to try to save this marriage, done something to try and save me, save us. And it didn't happen. A couple, months after we separated, he was dating someone. And that anger came up. And I was, as I've mentioned in many episodes before, I put on the music and I get all angry. I become this angry person. And I'm like, fuck him. And he deserves the worst. And, I eventually had to come to terms with forgiving him. And again, it wasn't about forgiving for him. It was for myself because I was holding on to so much anger and so much resentment and just heavy feelings. And then as it ended, I started to think about what I could have done in the marriage to change. And then I got hard on myself because I don't handle failure well. And I started being hard on myself. Like, well, Paul, you could have done this and you should have done that. And I started kind of sitting in those emotions. And I also had to forgive myself because I was so hard on myself and acknowledge the fact that maybe I didn't have the tools to cope, to handle what was around me, to ensure that I could have made the right decision. And I think when it comes down to forgiveness, it's, again, acknowledging the fact that maybe, my father didn't have the resources to be a good father. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own decision making. But for me, I find it hard to forgive sometimes. And if you're listening out there, do you find it hard to sometimes forgive someone for something that they have done for you? And do you ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth forgiving? Is it worth to forgive someone who has betrayed you, who has hurt you? And then also, too, I was under the mindset that if I forgave someone, that means that I was happy with the decision they made, or that I had to let them back into my life. And as I got older, I realized, I can forgive someone for what they've done to me, but that doesn't mean that I have to let them back into my life. Maybe it's just a lesson that I learned and that I have to move on from it. And that's what I learned from forgiveness, because I also, felt like, well, I can forgive them. There's no way that I can forgive someone who hurt me, who put me through all this pain. But again, it wasn't about the actual, it wasn't about accepting, it wasn't about for me what they did was right, right? Because I used to feel, again, if somebody hurt me and I forgave them, it made it seem like in my eyes that I was okay with what they did. And that's not what forgiveness is about. What forgiveness is about is acknowledging that the person that hurt you did what they did, not so much approving of what they did. It's not so much of making sure that what they did was okay, that it was right. Because you could forgive someone for doing something and still acknowledge the fact that what they did was wrong. So if you were to ask me, is forgiveness worth it? I truly believe that it is. It's not easy. It's not easy, but when you don't forgive somebody for something they did, it just kind of festers and it lingers with this uncertainty of emotions, right? Because when you hold on to something like that, it's heavy. It's not easy. And this is even with friendships, right? I've gone through some friendships where maybe we were both in the wrong and it was a situation that happened, and sometimes the ego and pride gets in the way of seeing what actually happened. And I'm really glad that I've made decisions on understanding other people and why they made the decision they made. And I may not agree with them, right? So when somebody hurts me and I ask them, why did you do that? It's not that I'm like okay with what they did. I'm just trying to acknowledge what they did and why they did it. So if you're out there listening, I'm curious. Is forgiveness something that's easy for you? Is it something that you struggle with? And is it something that you are working on? Because for me, what helped me was honestly going into therapy, because I was able to pull myself out of the situations, the scenarios. I was able to kind of see from a bird's eye view of how my life was and how I was able to forgive certain people for the things they did. This could be parents, like I said, loved ones, relationships, because forgiveness is not about them. It's not about the person who hurt you. It's about freedom for yourself. It's about allowing yourself to breathe a little better, to have less stress on yourself, to allow yourself to live a better life. I've often met so many people who hold on to grudges, right? Because that's another thing. What forgiveness allows you to do is let go of a grudge. It allows you to not hold on to something. And I think people think that if you forgive someone, you're letting go of what they did. And in some ways you are, but that doesn't mean that you're going to forget what they did. What it's basically is letting go of the control that you can't control. I cannot control if somebody broke my heart or cheated on me or betrayed me. I can't control that. They made the decision to do that. People's parents, boyfriends, lovers who have betrayed them, they have made that decision. And your job, our job, if we're on the tail end of that betrayal, is to acknowledge And sometimes we don't understand. Sometimes you're not going to understand why somebody cheated on you or treated you horrible as a partner. Just acknowledge it. They treated me bad. I can't change that. I have to acknowledge that. I have to sit with that and realize that that's what happened in my life. So if you're out there and you're struggling to forgive someone who's hurt you really bad, it doesn't mean that you're letting it go, that you're letting go of the betrayal or you're letting go of the hurt. It just means that you're acknowledging it. And our job, your job, is to figure out what you're going to do with that betrayal and the forgiveness, right? So someone hurts me, I forgive them for what they do, and now I'm able to make a decision if I want that person in my life still. If I'm going to let it bother me, you can work on. You have the control and the power to do what to figure out what happens after that. My boyfriend cheats on me. I understand that what he did was wrong. I'm not forgiving him, for cheating on me. I'm forgiving him for to let myself free of the hurt that he caused for me. Cool. I forgive you. You cheated on me. I forgive you for that, but I don't want you back in my life. I don't. You want to tell me sorry? You didn't mean to do it. That is great. I forgive you. I accept your apology, but just know that I no longer want you in my life. I forgive you for treating me like shit during our marriage. I forgive you for being a shitty parent. That doesn't mean that I need you back in my life. Again, the forgiveness is for you to move on. And especially when you're forgiving yourself. We are so hard on ourselves. We are our own worst critics. We have a hard time with forgiving ourselves, with mistakes that we make, with decision making that we have done. Acknowledge the fact that you did something wrong and learn from it. Move on from it, because the truth is, we're all going to be on both ends of forgiveness. Sometimes we're going to need to ask for forgiveness, and sometimes we're going to be asked for forgiveness. So just remember that. We're not perfect. We all make mistakes in this world, in this life. We're human, right? We are not perfect, but I challenge you to work on forgiveness for yourself, for others, when someone's asking for forgiveness, when you're asking for forgiveness. There's many times when I've had to tell sorry to people, and sometimes they don't accept my apology, and that's hurtful, but I have to live with that, and I have to acknowledge the fact that they don't want to forgive me for whatever small, big reason it is. And on the other end, if someone's asking for an apology, if they're asking, you can acknowledge it, you can accept it, but you have the power to make the final decision if you want someone in your life or if you don't. But guys, if you're out there and you're struggling with forgiveness, if you were to ask me if it's worth it, if forgiveness is worth it, I believe it is. Because it's not about the act that was done. It's about you and acknowledging the fact that something has been done to you in a hurtful way. That doesn't mean that you are going to let that person back in your life or that you're going to allow people to mistreat you. It just means that you're aware of what has been done to you. And you get to make the decision of whether or not you want to move forward with that person. But forgiveness is about accepting something that has happened and either move on from it or you continue in that pattern. But I want to thank you so much for tuning in. It means a great deal to me, guys. But I hope you have a great, great day, and I will see you on the next episode.